Staff Sergeant Alex Thompson stepped off the plane at Reagan National Airport, his uniform caked with the dust of Afghanistan. The bustling terminal was a stark contrast to the war-torn landscapes he'd left behind just hours ago. As he made his way through the crowd, Alex couldn't help but notice the stark difference between his worn appearance and the freshly pressed suits and crisp outfits of the other travelers. Approaching the first-class lounge, Alex hesitated. He knew he didn't belong there, but the thought of a quiet place to rest was tempting after months of chaos. As he neared the entrance, a stern-looking attendant named Jessica eyed him warily. Without a word, Alex turned away, feeling invisible and out of place in this world of luxury and peace. Finding a seat in the crowded general waiting area, Alex closed his eyes, trying to block out the cheerful chatter around him. The sounds of laughter and casual conversation were a stark reminder of how far removed he felt from normal life. His mind drifted to his fellow soldiers, some who would never return home. A child's excited squeal about an upcoming vacation pierced through Alex's thoughts. He opened his eyes, watching families huddled together, business people tapping away on laptops, and couples lost in their own worlds. The normalcy of it all was almost overwhelming. Alex felt a lump form in his throat as he realized how much he'd missed, how much had changed while he was away. He straightened his back, determined not to show weakness, even as the weight of his experiences pressed down on him. Jessica, the first-class lounge attendant, couldn't shake the image of the dusty soldier from her mind. As she went about her duties, greeting well-dressed passengers and checking tickets, her eyes kept drifting to where Alex sat alone in the busy terminal. Something about his solitary figure tugged at her heart. During a lull in passengers, Jessica made a decision. She approached Alex, her stern demeanor softening as she got closer. "Excuse me, sir," she said gently. "Are you all right? Can I get you anything?" Alex looked up, surprise evident in his tired eyes. He hesitated before responding. "I'm fine, ma'am. Just waiting for my connecting flight." But Jessica saw beyond his words, noticing the weariness etched into every line of his face. "You've just returned from deployment, haven't you?" she asked, her voice filled with newfound respect. Alex nodded, and slowly, he began to open up. He spoke of long nights in the desert, of friends lost, and of the surreal feeling of being back in the States. Jessica listened intently, her heart aching for the young man before her. As Alex spoke, Jessica's resolve strengthened. She made a quick decision that she knew might cost her job, but felt right in her heart. "Sir," she said, her voice firm but kind, "I'd like to invite you to rest in our first-class lounge while you wait for your flight. You've earned it." Alex started to protest, but Jessica was already helping him gather his belongings. "I insist," she said with a smile. "It's the least we can do to thank you for your service." As they walked towards the lounge, Jessica positioned herself protectively at Alex's side, determined to change the perceptions of the other travelers. She knew she was about to challenge the norms, but the look of gratitude in Alex's eyes told her it was worth any risk. As Jessica guided Alex into the first-class lounge, the reaction was immediate. Conversations halted, and heads turned to stare at the dust-covered soldier entering their pristine sanctuary. Jessica felt Alex tense beside her, ready to retreat, but she stood firm. With a deep breath, Jessica raised her voice, addressing the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Staff Sergeant Alex Thompson, who has just returned from serving our country overseas. I think he deserves a hero's welcome. Don't you?" For a moment, the lounge was silent. Then, as if a spell had been broken, a slow applause began. It started with one person, then two, and suddenly the entire lounge erupted in thunderous applause and cheers. Alex stood frozen, overwhelmed by the sudden outpouring of support. As the applause continued, an elderly man rose from his seat, tears glistening in his eyes. He approached Alex, his hand outstretched. "My son," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "He served too. He didn't make it home. Thank you for your service, son. Thank you for carrying on where others couldn't." The old man's words seemed to break a dam. Suddenly, people were gathering around Alex, offering handshakes, pats on the back, and words of gratitude. The atmosphere in the lounge transformed from one of exclusivity to one of unity and appreciation. Jessica watched the scene unfold, her heart swelling with pride and emotion. She saw Alex's stiff posture gradually relax, a small smile beginning to form on his face as he realized he wasn't alone anymore. The invisible barrier that had separated him from civilian life was crumbling, replaced by a bridge of understanding and gratitude. As the initial excitement calmed, Jessica caught Alex's eye. The look of gratitude he gave her spoke volumes. In that moment, she knew that her simple act of kindness had not only changed Alex's day, but had created a ripple effect of compassion and recognition that would last long after the flights had departed. As the initial commotion settled, Alex found himself at the center of an attentive audience. The first-class lounge, once a symbol of exclusivity, had transformed into an impromptu gathering of newfound friends and supporters. Encouraged by the genuine interest in his eyes around him, Alex began to share stories of his time in service. He spoke of the intense camaraderie forged in the crucible of war, of nights spent under star-filled desert skies, and of the unwavering dedication of his fellow soldiers. His words painted vivid pictures of both the hardships and the moments of unexpected beauty he had experienced. "There was this one time," Alex began, his voice growing stronger with each word, "when our unit was pinned down in a small village. We were exhausted, low on supplies, and things looked pretty grim. But then, one of the local kids brought us water and bread. This child, who had every reason to fear us, showed us kindness. It reminded us of why we were there, to protect and serve, not just our country, but humanity." As Alex spoke, the lounge fell into a respectful silence. Businessmen set aside their laptops, families gathered closer, and even the staff paused in their duties to listen. The raw honesty in Alex's words bridged the gap between civilian and military life, allowing those present to glimpse a world they had only seen through news reports and movies. Inspired by Alex's openness, others began to share their own stories. A woman spoke of her brother's struggle with PTSD after returning from Iraq. A young college student shared his ambition to join the Peace Corps, inspired by the humanitarian aspects of military service. Even Jessica, the attendant, opened up about her father's military career and how it had shaped her understanding of sacrifice and duty. As the stories flowed, a sense of connection filled the room. Strangers found common ground, sharing tears and laughter. Alex, who had felt so isolated upon his arrival, now sat at the heart of a makeshift community, united by shared experiences and newfound understanding. Jessica watched the scene unfold, marveling at how a simple act of kindness had sparked such a profound moment of human connection. She realized that in honoring Alex, they had created a space where everyone felt seen and heard, reminding them all of the power of compassion and the importance of recognizing the heroes among us. As the impromptu gathering in the first-class lounge continued, the atmosphere grew increasingly warm and intimate. Alex, now more at ease, delved deeper into his experiences, touching on the challenges faced by veterans upon their return home. His words resonated deeply with many in the room, opening eyes and hearts to the often invisible struggles of those who serve. "The hardest part," Alex admitted, his voice soft but steady, "is feeling like you don't quite fit in anymore. Like there's this invisible wall between you and everyone else." Heads nodded in understanding, and a few eyes glistened with tears. A young woman named Emily, who had been listening intently, stood up. "My dad was a veteran," she said, her voice wavering slightly. "He never talked about his experiences, but I always sensed there was so much he carried inside. Listening to you, Alex, I feel like I understand him better now. Thank you for your openness." Emily's words seemed to break down the last barriers in the room. Soon, others were sharing their own connections to military service: grandparents who had fought in World War II, siblings currently deployed, friends who had struggled with the transition back to civilian life. Each story wove another thread in the tapestry of shared experience and understanding. Alex found himself deeply moved by the outpouring of support and empathy. For the first time since his return, he felt truly seen and understood. The lounge had become a safe space where he could be vulnerable, where his experiences were valued rather than feared or misunderstood. Jessica, watching from the sidelines, marveled at the transformation. What had started as a simple gesture of kindness had blossomed into something profound, a moment of true human connection that transcended social barriers and preconceptions. As the sharing continued, Alex realized that in helping others understand his experiences, he was also beginning to heal. The weight he had carried for so long felt lighter, shared among this impromptu community of strangers turned friends. As the conversations in the lounge deepened, Jessica was struck by an idea. She quickly gathered some supplies from behind the counter, colorful markers, sheets of paper, and tape. Returning to the group, she announced, "I thought we could create a wall of gratitude. Let's write messages of thanks to the veterans in our lives or to those serving now." The suggestion was met with enthusiasm. Soon, the pristine walls of the first-class lounge were adorned with heartfelt messages, creating a vibrant mural of appreciation and support. Emily penned a touching note to her father, expressing the newfound understanding she had gained. The elderly man who had first approached Alex wrote a poignant message to his fallen son. Even children joined in. After a moment of reflection, he wrote a message to his fellow soldiers still serving overseas. "To my brothers and sisters in arms, your sacrifice is not forgotten. Stay strong. We're waiting to welcome you home." As he stepped back, Alex felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Jessica, her eyes shining with emotion. "This is beautiful," she said softly. "Look at what you've inspired." The wall became more than just a collection of messages. It was a physical representation of the bridges built and the understanding gained in that unlikely gathering. Passengers entering the lounge stopped to read the messages, many adding their own, expanding the circle of gratitude and awareness. A business executive who had been quietly observing approached Alex. "I run a marketing firm," he said, handing Alex his card. "We have a program for hiring veterans. When you're ready to transition to civilian life, give me a call. We need leaders like you." Alex accepted the card, touched by the unexpected opportunity. He realized that this wall of gratitude wasn't just changing the atmosphere in the lounge, it was potentially changing lives, including his own. As the mural grew, covering nearly an entire wall of the lounge, it stood as a powerful reminder of the impact one act of kindness could have, rippling outward and touching countless lives. As the excitement around the gratitude wall began to settle, Alex found a quiet moment to sit with Jessica. They moved to a corner of the lounge, away from the bustling activity, where they could talk more intimately. "I can't thank you enough for this," Alex said, his voice low and sincere. "When I walked into this airport, I felt so disconnected, like I didn't belong anywhere anymore." Jessica nodded, understanding in her eyes. "I see a lot of service members pass through here," she admitted, "but I've never really known how to help. I guess sometimes all it takes is a small gesture to make a big difference." As they talked, and the struggle to relate to friends who couldn't understand what he'd been through, Jessica listened intently, sharing her own challenges of dealing with difficult passengers and the stress of her job. Though their experiences were vastly different, they found common ground in the human struggle to find purpose and connection. "You know," Jessica said thoughtfully, "what you did here today? Opening up and sharing your experiences, that takes real courage. It's a different kind of bravery than what you showed on the battlefield, but it's just as important." Alex felt a warmth spread through him at her words. For the first time since returning home, he felt truly seen and understood. "Thank you," he said softly. "For everything." As their conversation drew to a close, they exchanged contact information, promising to stay in touch. Alex felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this unexpected friendship could be a bridge to his new life as a civilian. Meanwhile, around them, the lounge continued to buzz with activity. The connections forged in this unlikely setting were growing stronger, transcending the temporary nature of an airport waiting area. What had started as a simple act of kindness had blossomed into a network of support and understanding that would extend far beyond the walls of the airport. As the event in the lounge continued, a group of wide-eyed children on a school trip entered, their chaperone explaining they had a layover before their flight to Washington, D.C. The kids' eyes immediately locked onto Alex in his dusty uniform. Their curiosity piqued. Noticing their interest, Jessica gently encouraged Alex to talk with them. At first hesitant, Alex soon found himself surrounded by eager faces, their questions coming rapid fire. "Have you been in a real battle?" one boy asked excitedly. "What's it like to fly in a helicopter?" another chimed in. Alex smiled, carefully considering how to respond. He decided to focus on the aspects of his service that these young minds could relate to and be inspired by. "Being a soldier isn't just about battles," he began, kneeling down to their level. "It's about teamwork, about looking out for each other. It's about being brave, even when you're scared, and doing what's right, even when it's hard." He told them about building schools in remote villages, about the joy on children's faces when they received books and supplies. He spoke of the importance of education and how it can change lives. The children listened, enthralled. Their earlier excitement about war and weapons transformed into a deeper understanding of service and compassion. One little girl raised her hand shyly. "Can I give you a hug?" she asked. "My big sister is a soldier too, and I miss her." Alex's heart melted. "Of course you can," he said softly. As the little girl hugged him, other children joined in, creating a group hug that brought tears to the eyes of onlooking adults. Jessica watched the scene unfold, her heart swelling with emotion. She saw in Alex not just a soldier, but a natural mentor, someone who could bridge the gap between military service and civilian understanding for the next generation. As the children reluctantly said goodbye, promising to write letters to troops overseas, Alex stood up, a new light in his eyes. He realized that his experiences, difficult as they were, gave him a unique ability to inspire and educate. It was a role he had never considered before, but one that filled him with a sense of purpose. As the day wore on, the impact of the impromptu gathering in the first-class lounge began to spread beyond its walls. An airport photographer, intrigued by the unusual activity, asked to take a picture of Alex and Jessica standing in front of the gratitude wall. The photograph, capturing the unlikely friendship between the weary soldier and the kind-hearted attendant, was quickly shared on the airport's social media accounts. Within hours, it had gone viral, touching hearts across the country. Comments poured in, from people moved by the story of compassion and recognition. Veterans shared their own experiences of feeling isolated upon returning home, while civilians expressed renewed appreciation for those who serve. The viral post caught the attention of local news stations. A reporter arrived at the airport, eager to interview Alex and Jessica about the unexpected event that had unfolded. As Alex spoke to the camera, his initial nervousness gave way to a passionate articulation of the challenges faced by returning veterans and the importance of community support. Jessica, standing beside him, emphasized how a small act of kindness could create a ripple effect of positive change. Their story resonated with viewers, sparking discussions about how communities could better support their veterans. Local businesses began reaching out, offering job opportunities and support services for returning soldiers. Other veterans in the airport, who had been silently carrying their own burdens, were inspired to come forward and share their stories. A spontaneous support network began to form, with veterans and civilians alike offering words of encouragement and resources. Alex, overwhelmed by the response, realized that his journey home had become something much larger than himself. He had become a catalyst for change, bringing to light important issues that often went unspoken. As the interviews concluded and the excitement began to settle, Alex turned to Jessica. "I never expected any of this," he said, his voice filled with emotion. Jessica smiled warmly. "Sometimes the most profound changes start with the smallest gestures," she replied. "You opened your heart, and look at what's happened. You've given a voice to so many who felt unheard." Together, they watched as more people gathered around the gratitude wall, adding their own messages and forming new connections. The airport, usually a place of transient encounters, had been transformed into a hub of community and understanding. As the day drew to a close, an announcement echoed through the airport, catching everyone's attention. A group of veterans was being honored at the opening ceremony of a new memorial in the city. The organizers, having heard about the events in the first-class lounge, extended a last-minute invitation for Alex to speak at the ceremony. Alex froze, a mix of honor and apprehension washing over him. Public speaking had never been his forte, and the thought of addressing a large crowd made his palms sweat. Sensing his hesitation, Jessica placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "You can do this, Alex," she encouraged. "Think of it as another mission. Your words today have already touched so many lives. Imagine what you could do with an even bigger platform." The other veterans who had gathered around them echoed Jessica's sentiments, offering words of support and encouragement. Alex looked around at the faces of his new friends, at the wall of gratitude they had created together, and felt a surge of strength. "All right," he said, taking a deep breath. "I'll do it." The next few hours were a whirlwind of preparation. Fellow veterans helped Alex polish his uniform, while others, including a speechwriter who happened to be in the lounge, helped him organize his thoughts for the address. As Alex prepared to leave for the ceremony, the lounge erupted in applause. Jessica hugged him tightly. "Remember," she whispered, "you're not just speaking for yourself, you're speaking for all those who can't speak for themselves." At the memorial, Alex stood before a sea of faces, his heart pounding. But as he began to speak, he found strength in the stories shared in the lounge, in the connections made, and in the understanding gained. His speech was raw, honest, and deeply moving. He spoke of the challenges faced by veterans, but also of hope, of the power of community, and of the importance of bridging the gap between military and civilian life. As he concluded, the crowd rose in a standing ovation. In that moment, Alex realized he had found a new mission: to be a voice for veterans, to foster understanding, and to build bridges between communities. Back at the airport, Jessica watched the ceremony live on a television in the lounge, surrounded by the new friends they had made that day. As Alex's words resonated through the speakers, she saw tears in the eyes of those around her, and felt them in her own. What had started as a simple act of kindness had grown into something profound, a movement of compassion, understanding, and hope. As the camera panned over the cheering crowd at the memorial, Jessica knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, not just for Alex, but for all those whose lives had been touched by their unexpected encounter. The story of the soldier and the flight attendant would be told and retold, inspiring countless others to reach out, to listen, and to bridge the divides that too often separate us. In the end, it was a powerful reminder that sometimes the most significant changes begin with the smallest gestures of kindness and recognition.
Disclaimer: this channel does not support or tolerate any form of discrimination, racism, prejudice, or violation of human rights. The stories presented here are original and created by the author with the aim of promoting reflection, awareness, and dialogue. All content is developed with respect for diversity and the dignity of all people.